Fate protagonists always seem to be a massive womanizer of some sorts. You can see that Shiro has rizzed up Rin, Sakura Saber Rider, or even Ilya. Hakuno Kishinami from the Fate Extra or Fate Extella series has the options of Nera, Tamamo, and probably all of the servants in the game. And now we have Ritsuka Fujimaru, or the FGO protagonist. Since FGO has around 300 servants, it's impossible for all of the servants to be a part of Ritsuka's harem, right? Well, maybe what's really happening is that I'm pretty sure around 100 more or less of those servants can be a part of Ritsuka's harem. This man studied in the RIzzvard University. This man is the Wizard of Oz. They call him a Rizzillionaire. This man was a part of the Rizz Rangers. The man got the coronavirus. This man was rizzing up servants left and right just for being a normal guy. All the singularities he went to, bro just rizzed up hotties left and right. It's every man's dream to pull this off. It really is a that should have been me moment. But the real question is, who deserves to stand beside Ritsuka? Or who deserves to be Ritsuka's significant other? Of course, I'm talking about the male Ritsuka, not the female Ritsuka, because the female Ritsuka character has been memed to death and beyond saving to make it a serious character. We see him rizzing up servants left and right, but when the rizzed up servants make a move on him, he doesn't really reciprocate the same feeling. Rather, he just accepts it and nothing happens. And the weird thing is that the servants are always making a move on him, even though it's quite clear that Ritsuka doesn't really give back. They do of course have really close connections with one another, but not to the level of significant others. In the stories of Fate games, it always seems that when you play as the protagonist, you can pick which route you want to go and complete. Obvious example would be in Fate Stay Night, where Shiro has the options of Rin, Sakura, and Saber. 3 different routes, with 3 different stories, and with 3 different outcomes. Type Moon is always the one who gives several options to the player because their original games were visual novels after all, and in visual novels you make choices. Just like the Telltale games, the choices will have a massive impact on your characters, on the story, and on yourself as well, the protagonist later on. Even though the memes do make him Shiro a Rizz Lord and has the best harem of all time, but in the story he really only ends up with one of them. There's no option to have a harem or rizzing up Saber, Rider, Rin, Sakura, and Ilya at the same time. It's just you go down the path of Rin, you get Rin. Something like that. In the case of FGO, it's different. FGO is a RPG gacha game and it has a lot of servants in it, and the story is way longer than Fate Stay Night. FGO also has lots of singularities and events, which the whole storyline and trying to understand the FGO story as a whole is like trying to play basketball without hands. It's impossible. Also, it seems to follow one linear story, well, the main story. Obviously, there are event stories and pseudo-singularities, but still, the main story doesn't branch out to different storylines which you can choose. It's already predetermined for you and you have to follow it. Now, in the case of FGO, there are My Room dialogues and interludes, which if you unlock them and do them, you'll get an extra story or information about the server that you want to know more about. Like for example, if we do Medusa's interlude, we'll see that her and Ritsuka are going on a date, which results in Mash acting jealous. The Last Belt 6, spoilers, we can see that Castoria falls in love with Ritsuka. There's also Kiyohime being a yandere to Ritsuka, and there are tons of examples of servants which could potentially be an option to Ritsuka. But even with all of those servants, those options, it seems that our Ritsuka doesn't really want to be with either one of them, and that might be wrong. But if we follow the story, it makes sense. Once the Lost Belt or the Singularity is done, the servants will eventually disappear, and I think for Ritsuka to make one of them his significant other, it will not have a good effect on him when they disappear. Even with all the disappearance of all the singularities and the servants in it, I think Ritsuka does a good job of just moving on to the next one. He meets servants and he goes. So I understand the reason why he just doesn't reciprocate their feelings. Also, with how the game goes, there's no option to go to a branching storyline and do it differently than other players. The only thing you can do differently is how much you want to spend on that sweet Saint Quartz. Okay, so if FGO doesn't give you options for different stories, Ritsuka doesn't reciprocate their feelings or doesn't show any interest towards any servants, then who does he end up with, or which servant has the most chance of a canon love relationship with Ritsuka in FGO? To be honest, there's no official answer to this, and the reason why is probably because of how well the game is selling. In my theory, the only character that deserves to stand beside Ritsuka or to become Ritsuka's significant other is Mash. Very simple.
おはようございます、先輩。マシキリエライト、到着しました。
Mash is the very first person we interacted with and our very first servant in all of this. You know how FGO starts, we fall asleep in the hallway and Mash wakes us up and everything just started from there. Think of it. This is the first servant we have in the game and in the story. She was the person who was there when it all started and always has been there. I think a lot of people really write off Mash sometimes because her in-game is not really anything special, but in terms of how well she just fits with Ritsuka and her overall relationship with Ritsuka is probably one of my favorite parts in the game. But we can actually see how much Mash actually likes Ritsuka in the game because of her dialogues. Some of the dialogue really shows how much she really cares and admires her senpai. In the anime, it really made it seem that both Mash and Ritsuka are two characters that are made for each other. There are moments in the Babylonia, Solomon, and the First Order anime that really showed that they're made for each other. In fact, I was pissed in the Solomon movie as in the end they didn't do as much as a hug at least after what they went through and how much the story was baiting us. Like, you can't tell me that he just doesn't end up with someone else in the story, especially with the anime. I know a lot of my basis is on the anime and her being Ritsuka's first servant, but I just know that Mash is probably the best option for Ritsuka, as in the story that most servants just come and go and Mash will hopefully stay with Ritsuka until the end. So in my conclusion, the one that Ritsuka will end up with is Mash when FGO ends, or whenever they want to advance their relationship. To be honest though, I've heard that Castoria during Lost Belt 6 really also had a very close and deep connection with Ritsuka because Castoria went on a date, a walk, and related deeply with Ritsuka on a personal level. So Castoria could have been someone to be on Ritsuka's side, but I still think that Mash is the only one that can truly be his significant other and no one else. This is the end of the video and you did well to reach it. I was running out of ideas on what to make and this just came up, so hopefully this was something worth to watch. Anyways, that's about it. See ya.